Hello and welcome to Marvel Talk. I am your host, Ed Fries, and I'm joined by some wonderful people, including my tag team partner, Andre C. And Andre, why don't you introduce us to our friends for tonight's episode?
Our friends here joined tonight as LLE, well-known LLE person, the natural Astrid Pizarro. Welcome to the show, Astrid.
Hello.
Glad to have you on. And then from SNME Radio, from BAM Weekly, and the It's Canon podcast, my friend, Boris Roberto Aguilar. How are we doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for joining us. Like we and Andre have said, for the weekly episodes, it's not easy to have a bunch of guests to be able to go ahead and talk because, for the most part, everybody sees most of the weekly episodes the same. But when it comes to a finale, especially a divisive finale, as we found on the internet today, between some people thinking it was pretty all right to Rotten Tomatoes apparently saying it has a 13 to Rotten Tomatoes score. It's been an interesting day for today. Boris, we'll start with you. What did you think of this finale?
I thought that overall it was good, but it left me with more questions than half of the episodes. And is that a good thing? I don't know. But it was kind of par for course for a lot of these Disney Plus finales where it was good, but it left you wanting more. And this one especially, I feel like there were a lot more questions leaving the show and kind of in the state of the MCU than there were going into the show.
Miss Astrid, what about you?
I just remember watching first when I opened the app, I kept thinking of Andre because I saw the runtime and I was like, how is this under an hour? How? I kept wondering, it's like I was hoping for at least an hour to like really go through everything. And then when I saw 37 minutes, I was like, I don't know if I'm happy about this. Play. And so I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like it should have been longer than what it was, and I feel like it would have expanded on a lot more than what it did.
Andre, so many scrolls.
Yeah, there. When I saw the runtime, I was like after, especially the same as I had the same feeling as last week. I'm like, what's going on here? And especially this week with the big finale, I figure we're gonna get more. And again, it left you with like, okay, so where are we going? Where is this scroll war going? Are we gonna get like, are they going to come ahead with a scroll series? And like, what's going on? Like, how do we get to Thunderbolt Ross as president? Because like you still have Ritson as sitting president at the end of this, and I'm just like, what is going on?
I think to try to focus on a positive for this, the one thing it did is it tied up a lot of the questions that we had going into the episode. It didn't answer a lot of the questions we have coming out of it, and it left us with a bunch of questions coming out of it. But for the most part, for the first time on a Disney Plus show, it did a pretty good job of wrapping up the things we had seen beforehand.
Yeah,
know,
but leaving
Yeah.
so much stuff open.
I agree, and that's not necessarily a bad. Again, it's a comic book show, and comic books are notorious for never ending anything. One of the things I really enjoyed about this was before the episode went on the air, this popped up on Twitter, and I happened to be awake and I saw it. Everything, whole bunch of boxes, is bunch of boxes, not as a box, it seems. But the key thing that I saw online when I was looking through the comments is it's an edited tweet, which means it's a previous version. And when you click on it, it reveals everything hangs in the balance now. Our species is close to finding a home, but humans are not as accepting. It seems that a war may be upon us. I think had this come out in the days before the episode and not hours before, it could have tied into a very interesting way of guerrilla marketing online with realizing that Skrulls were running the Secret Invasion Twitter account.
It could have been fun, but again, they didn't take the steps. And again, it's I'm not saying I didn't not enjoy this finale. It was a good finale. Just
We have Barry Monkey jumping in saying, hello, everyone. I've been trying to learn yoga. I stole 47 picnic baskets before I learned that I was following the wrong yogi. I mean, I'll be honest. I think you're following the right yogi. Just going to say, I think you were following the right yogi. But if we start breaking down this episode, we'll go bit by bit for a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and jump into bigger points. And if you have something as I go ahead and go through some of these photos as we go ahead and talk, feel free to jump in so we can go ahead and have a discussion. We see Fury's car going up. Well, first, the episode starts. We don't have a picture of this, but Fury has a conversation with Priscilla. Fury doesn't seem much like himself. Apparently, he never calls her on. Now, I don't know if it's that phone or any of her phones, but apparently he doesn't call much. And I liked his response of, no, I've dialed the numbers about 1 million times. This is just the first time I've ever hit send.
Mm-hmm.
We get to the point where Fury shows up in Russia trying to get in, and the guards shoot the car because it won't stop. And then we see that Fury shoots both the guards. We get multiple scenes with President Rittenson going back and forth with Scrody, as we've come to call him on the show, and one of his other female advisors, where we find out that the Russians are putting tanks on the Ukrainian border, which I thought was a bold move, Cotton. Bold move, Cotton, to go ahead and talk about Russian tanks on the Ukrainian border.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a bit too real life for me, but The Russians are putting tanks on the Ukrainian and the Finnish border. We have an argument between this highly ranking, it looks like Navy official, if I know my American military uniforms correctly, but I might be wrong. Oh, no, we're going to stop there. And they have this discussion about whether or not he's going to go ahead and send the bombers after him, or if he's going to get more information. What did we think about Dermot Mulroney and his President Ritson?
You guys can go ahead if you want.
I like them. I've always been a fan of this actor, so it was fine. I really enjoyed it, and I think that they did a really good job of kind of encapsulating what the Americans would actually feel in this situation with his character. So I really did enjoy his character overall.
Astrid?
Yeah, I feel like it's just exactly how it is in real life, to put it like that. But to me, it's a little bit different because he was recently Ghostface, so I just want to kill him because I just see Ghostface right now. I know I think of it that way. So like every time I see him, I'm like, you're gonna die soon, but he's not. I gotta take that off my mind every time I see him on my screen, though. That doesn't help.
I was a little underwhelmed, I'll be honest. I thought finally having a president in the Marvel Cinematic Universe would have been something that could have been addressed a little bit more. I think it's one thing that's been missing throughout the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is some form of U.S. government that we've never actually seen. And especially with the idea of a spy thriller, I was hoping for a little bit more political intrigue, and we never actually got it. And again, that could be due to the fact that after episode 2, no episode hit a 40-minute runtime.
Yeah, and I think he did fine, and I think it's especially how this episode ends. I think it sets it up. I have a feeling he's probably going to be in Thunderbolts to set up what's going to, like, where again they're talking about President Thunderbolt Ross, right? So, well, I think that he'll probably appear in that movie to set up Thunderbolt Ross becoming the president. I have a feeling. So again, I think they did a good job introducing him here. But again, I just like Dermot Mulroney in general, though.
Yeah. And then we're going to get to my favorite person in all of the episodes of this show, Sonya Fallsworth, where she calls Rhodey and she tells him that Fury's in the building and he's coming after the president. And she was the biggest delight that I saw in this entire show.
Agreed.
She was never the same character in any episode. It felt like her character changed slightly in every episode, where in some episodes she's crazy and she has no F's to give. And in some episodes she's just sneaky as can be. She was such an evolving character, and she made the most of every moment that she was on this show.
Yeah, that's true, though.
Yeah, I thought the way she evolved from just kind of weird little character in the first, and the Skrull torture into the the way she blew up, like taking down the Skrulls in episode 5. She was a highlight of episode 5, 100%. And here she was just this great, like, just shining star in it all, and just I think she's just I want MI13. I want her a Sonya Fallsworth led MI13 show or something, because that sounds so cool to me.
Yeah, agreed. I thought she was great, and it was kind of weird because at first I thought she was just going to be like a side throwaway character, and then you started seeing her like kind of, be a little more involved. Then episode 5 happened, and I'm like, okay, this is really cool. And then in 6, it's like she's kind of like the glue that put everything together, and like really the one that solved a lot of it, right? Like, let's be honest, I think she was more Nick Fury than Nick Fury himself in this series.
I think they're setting her up to be the new Nick Fury of Earth. She is now the spy who runs the world. And I think we'll touch on that again, I think, a little bit later on. We have the summit where Fury, air quotes here, finally arrives to the facility. And he's instantly, and I mean instantly, upon being in the facility, acting like he's dying as he's in this nuclear reactor. and he goes walking around and he finds dead Skrulls everywhere. But he finally makes it down to the chamber, and Gravik's just chilling, just waiting for him. And finally, Kingsley Ben-Adir's character, I think came full circle a little bit here in this episode. Because we talked last week, Andre and I did, about the flip that this character made between episodes 1 through 4 and episode 5. Where all of a sudden he was almost like a traditional generic villain number 12. Because all of a sudden it's kill everybody, nobody's important, I'm the only one who matters. But in this episode, he goes back to being the absolute psychotic, slow-talking villain that he was in the first couple episodes. Mm-hmm. And just to bring up Barry Monkey's comment, was it Olivia Colman? Yes. Olivia Colman and many other Game of Thrones actors were in this show. So they went heavily into that Game of Thrones line of acting for this, with Emilia Clarke as well, among others. Thoughts on Gravik? We'll start with Astrid and then move to Boris.
What I loved about it with this particular scene, though, is just I feel like it was that missing puzzle piece that we had between him and Fury, though. Because we always wondered, we see him from an adult now with him interacting with him, but we never get the in-between there. So we always wonder what was the connection between them, and to be able to hear him from his words. And not only, but you kind of see in a way, I don't want to say it like that, but I guess like a passion for what happened to him and like his story of like his way of telling his story. I really enjoyed that part in this particular scene. And once he like said everything, I was like, thank you. Finally, I get to understand, that part of you and your complete story now. So I enjoy the scene a lot too. The only thing is like I was getting ready for work, so I kind of didn't think of like this is not Nick Fury when this was happening. So it took me a moment to realize that because I was mostly listening to this part. But I love the interaction between both of them in here too.
Yeah, I liked his kind of story, his point of view, his inspiration, and why he's doing what he's doing, right? And it all comes down to Nick Fury. But what's really interesting, though, and it kind of made me go, is that Nick Fury still has no idea what motivated him at the end of the day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The fact that it's, spoiler alert, it's not Fury in the chamber, and that Fury still doesn't know, and we won't know if Fury ever finds out. It's such a great FU to the villain character in this thing, that he never gets that moment where he actually tells the real Nick Fury, because we have him here yelling at Fury, telling his story about how the reason he has the body he has is because this is the first person that he killed. The first person that Fury sent him to kill. This is the body he took to emulate that person, because that was when his motives changed. And he believed in Fury in the mission. But once he realized that Fury was never going to give them the planet that they wanted, he was angry and he was pissed off. And he started concocting the plan. Well, if you're not giving us our planet like you promised us, we're taking this one.
Oh, yeah. Like Gravik in here, it's also gravitas in this. It's just that ability to be this, like, kind of being crazy while also having that fuck you attitude of and like but also the charm, the smoothness, all in one. And just to switch from his smooth talking to his anger talk, to switch back, it was just, I don't know. Kingsley Ben-Adir is an amazing actor. I don't care what he does next, I will watch it, because this guy gives such great performances. And he made me, because again, episode 5 made me go, okay, are we just getting a generic bad guy for the rest of this? But then we got him back, and just to see him not have the ability to like, he got the villain monologue, the Bond villain monologue, but he didn't get it to the right person, and that makes me so happy.
We have our friend Alex jumping in, that Ecto guy. Hello, Scrolle. Hello. That should have been my name. I should have changed it to Scrolle. Oh.
Scrolled,
Yeah. We then get Sonya finally catching Rhodey as he goes ahead and tries to clear out the hospital so he can move the president, because Fury's on to them, which I thought was a great little touch. But again, this portion, this episode does such a great job of flipping between story A and story B.
Mhm.
I don't want to call them like the main story and the side story because I think they're both equally important because it's the two ends of the spectrum, and you have to have one to have the other. But then we get to the real fun part, the absolute greatness of the Super Scroll being revealed. He goes ahead and gets the harvest. He goes ahead and enters it in, and he becomes the full Super Scroll. He has the power of all the Avengers. He turns on the machine, thinking it's just Fury in there with him. But it's not, because Fury is able to hold steady because he was in the same spot and he is a Skrull. It is revealed to be Gaia standing there with him. And we get this great scene. Andre pulling great images here of we see Gaia Fury here going ahead and using a Hulk fist to Hulk up and beat him. And then Gaia reveals herself to him, and he's not a happy camper. Just what do we think of the first initial portions of this battle before we get to the real fun stuff that comes in a little bit?
I liked it.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Boris.
I thought it was a fun little fight, but it was very like. Here's the thing, right? And I kind of said this. It was very typical Disney Plus. It was kind of just there, and it just happened. The coolest part was trying to see all the Easter eggs and see which Avengers powers were appearing, right? And which Avengers we've never seen powers appear, if any. Yeah. Right? Like I was more interested in that than anything else.
Well, yeah, it's just her Hulk fisting. I'm like, oh, so you don't have to fully transform. You can partially transform these powers. I'm like, this is actually really cool. And the way that they used, and again, how she used the powers and how he would use power is that they're not fully transforming. And I thought they did it in a really cool way to use the powers. And my other question though is like with the original Super Skrull in the comics, when he got his powers, he was locked into his Skrull form. So is Gaia locked into her human form now?
No, because we've seen her in multiple different forms.
Yeah, but can she fully transform is what I'm saying.
Well, she was, I guess, because that's true. When she changed, she was Fury, and she never went Skrull beyond that. So she's able to transform, but whether or not she can go back full Skrull is a question.
Yeah, and again, we never saw Gravik go back to being human Gravik because he was basically Super Skrull the entire time.
Yeah.
As storyline A jumps back in, we have Fury going through the hospital, taking out random guard by random guard, until he gets to Sonya Fallsworth and Don Cheadle and the president, and we have a great Mexican standoff. And then we have the diplomacy that I've been missing this entire show, where we have Rhodey trying to explain to the president that he's Rhodey, and that this is not what's going on, and that he needs to use the bomb. Just buying time to get the bomb to go off, because, all he has to do is buy his time. And if he goes long enough, that bomb's going to go off. And Fury and Sonya are trying to talk him out of it. Boris, go ahead and talk about this initial section here with how well this was performed with 4 absolute incredible actors.
This was great because you have to put yourself in the president's shoes, right? Like probably the most important decision in human history is going to be made right now. So who am I going to listen to? And you have the motivation of Rhodes, trying to bide his time. Just he needs that enough time. Just enough time for that bomb to launch. And then you have Fury and Sonya where they're just trying their hardest to just delay. And I think that it was a great, just a great scene back and forth. And then Fury said, look, just give it a little bit of time and we can prove to you what's going on, right? I really did think that Sonya was just going to she had 2 guns on Rhodes, right? So I really thought that she was going to shoot him with one. So to reveal that he is a Skrull enough for just giving them enough time to wait. But yeah, I love this scene so much. This is probably my favorite scene of this episode. Just the acting was great. It was suspenseful, and it just made you feel like it was like one of those old school spies. Who do I shoot? This person or that person?
Astrid?
Yeah, I kept thinking along the same lines. I was thinking from like the president's standpoint, or his like, do I believe the person that's supposed to be like my right hand, or do I believe these people that just, in a way, coming in here and telling me basically this story? So I love that part of it. Just like, which one is he going for? I really thought the same thing, that she was gonna like shoot him, so that way the president could see that they were not lying and they could see him as a squirrel. So I was waiting for that part of it, for him to like transform just a bit, or like enough for the president to really notice. But I love even Fury telling him, is like, okay, if you do this, then we'll do that. If you do it this way, then we'll go the other route. So I love how even in this situation, he's giving him the options, like whichever one you choose, we'll go for one or the other one. But yeah, I love the scene, the way it just happened, just like right there and then. It's like, holy moly, okay. I'm like, who's he really going for? It's like, I feel like that I was in that room and that back and forth, kind of looking at both everybody from their point of view. That was really fun though.
Yeah, yeah. The acting, man. Like Sam Jackson, again, we've known him as a superstar forever, right? I think, has the most acting credits of any actor in the world, and he's always good. Like he's played some fart movies, but he's just such a gem. Coleman has just been so good, and Rhodey playing this guy like kind of half in peril, but half just trying to keep himself alive, and like just still being cocky while he knows he's got a gun on his head. I thought Cheetah was just awesome, and just the bit of panic, but the smoothness he had in there was so good. And then Dermot Mulroney just playing that, like, what am I going to do? Like, which one is the real Peter? If you think of a Family Guy, there was a Family Guy joke. That's all I can think of when I thought of that. Is which one is the real one? And it's just, I loved it. Like, just four amazing actors acting their ass off together, and it just gives you, like, this is what I really love from this show, is the acting from everyone in this.
And while, we didn't mention at the top of this, we mentioned at the top of last week, the actors are on strike, the writers are on strike. The two parts of this show that I will always remember as being the best things is the actors being able to act and the writers having written dialogue that was compelling, to where I didn't need $10 million of CGI blowing stuff up. And I didn't need a ton of fight scenes. We got 4 action scenes, I think, the entire movie, entire series. And that was enough, because there was so much great acting and so many great words written that we can't thank the writers on this show and the actors for coming out and absolutely killing it. And remember that, I'm not going to speak for our guests, but me and Andre came out last week and said that we completely support the SAG actors and the Writers Guild of America and the strike against the studios. We will not be covering any more Marvel products and Marvel shows until the strike is over. We wanted to finish these episodes because we already had told people we were going to be here and do these things. But moving forward, there will be no Marvel talks until the writer strike is over, until the actor strike is over, because those people deserve the things that they're fighting for.
100%. I love it.
After we get the Mexican standoff, we can't get a conclusion to that, because boom, we got to go right back to the B story. We've got Gravik showing off all kinds of powers.
I think that's Groot, and I don't know the other one.
I'm not sure. This is an interesting. It looks like it might be a little bit of Cull Obsidian.
Might be Cull Obsidian, yeah.
But then we get some really fun stuff from Gaia. And Andre has it labeled here, Gaia of Ice and Korg.
I had to quote it like that.
I'm curious. What is the ice ability? Because I can't remember.
One of the Frost Giants.
Oh, is it the Frost Giants? Okay.
I'm going to guess.
I'm assuming as well.
I would love it if it's a small little thing for Iceman and the X-Men.
Right?
Yep,
I'd love it. Like Boris talked about earlier, Avengers we've seen and not seen.
Yeah.
Could have been on that battlefield. There were so many people there that they can pretend that we have X-Men on that battlefield that we didn't know about.
Yeah, very true.
We get Gravik using Ebony Maw's ability to go ahead and create stuff. That was fantastic. I didn't even think of villains. When he kept saying the Harvest and the Avengers, I didn't think anything about villains.
Yeah.
Gaia going ahead and becoming Tom Klemp for one moment and going ahead and telling him sleep absolutely broke me.
It was just such a funny little line to play in. That like it was just because like that was like because Mantis has evolved into an absolutely badass character by the end of Guardians 3. But really, the end of Guardians 2, her entire power set was sleep.
We also get the Captain Marvel abilities here, shown by Gaia in this photo here. And also shown here where she goes ahead and gets a couple different sets. This looks like, I think this is Korg, Cull Obsidian, and Captain Marvel all in one.
Yeah.
If I were to guess, I don't know if anybody else can think of anything else that they see here.
Nah, those are the only arms I can really think. Because like, it looks like a rock arm and then the big arm that Gravik was using earlier.
And then she goes ahead and just chokes Gravik almost seemingly to death. Before blasting him in the chest with an energy beam and killing Gravik.
Yeah, he has Extremis, so you never know.
Round table.
And bad guys like to experiment on things, so you never know.
Round table, real quick answers, and then we can go ahead and talk about this fight scene and all the other things that were in here. Do we think Gravik's dead?
No.
No,
I don't think so.
No,
Right.
because this felt kind of easy. If he was dead, this felt kind of easy in a way after the way he's been. So I was like, nah. I was expecting them to show us some kind of scene of kind of him getting up when she was gone, so that she wouldn't know that he's still alive. And then when it didn't happen, I was like, oh, but I don't think so.
Anybody talking about this fight scene and all of the wonderful changes in the CGI work that was done here by some amazing CGI engineers?
It's for me, a lot of it is this, right? We know that a lot of the complaints about CGI comes down to timing and studio cheapness. But to me, this again shows, if you give people the time, if you give people the time at the end of the day to do a good job, it will look great. And I thought the CGI in this entire show looked really good.
Yeah, I'm like, what I think about it this way too. It may, at the same time, from like overall the show, it may kind of look from another point of view. It almost looks like a simple show compared to the other shows when it comes to special effects. But I like that when they do throw them in there, they're like accurate and they're really well done. And it happened with this scene. It's like I like more than anything the combinations between all the people that they have between both of them in this scene. I was trying to figure out who it was, but it was going so fast. So I'm glad I have the stills now to actually look at it. But it's amazing to see. It's like, oh, there's one of this one, a little bit of that one, a little bit of the other one, and I love seeing that in here. And it just so well done. I really love it.
And getting to see all the power sets face off, and the Ebony Maw one is the one that I was like, oh, and he started like flipping her into the thing, and like I was just like, oh yes, it was such a great like pull out of him, because that's not one of the powers I would have thought brought up in there. I was quite surprised we didn't get like a Scarlet Witch power or something at one point, because again her blood's been shed, but like I thought again, yeah, like you're saying, the graphics look absolutely wonderful on here. Again, I'm not a graphics I don't like when I watch She-Hulk. They weren't perfect, but they didn't bother me. Again, the CGI doesn't have to be perfect to me. It was still good, but this is like at its peak good, like peak level good of CGI. And again, you give them time, you give them the proper resources, and you give it to the right people to do it. It gets done well. And yeah, and then the other half is the Skrulls in this show. That's prosthesis, like the actual makeup and stuff. When you have them talking, I think that was the makeup artists in this for like when they're like actually in form and talking and everything. They did insanely good job making them look their Skrull look. I don't know. We'll get to it at the end, especially when we talk about the end of this episode.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing, that the makeup team with the practical effects of having the Skrulls look as good as they did. Because that's a mix between computer-generated CGI on top of practical makeup effects that they had. And it was fantastic. They did such a great job. But we can't deal with Gravik being down for too long because we got to flip back to the A storyline. And Fury just gets enough is enough, and he shoots Rhodey right in the head. And the purple blood covers the wall. And Rhodey changes back into his Skrull form.
Yeah. Again, it was perfect reveal because it's like Fury realized this is the only way he's gonna get this shit stopped just by shooting this dude in the head. He's like, I gotta kill this guy because there's no other. Like the president, he realized the president isn't going to make this decision without concrete proof.
After that, we go back to the scene in Russia at New Skrullos, and we see the pods being opened, and we find Rhodey and Everett Ross and everybody else being let out of their things. Here's something I have an interesting question for. We see so many people let out of their pods. You know who we never actually see get out of their pod? Everett Ross.
There did. He literally showed him. Oh, he was still stuck in the pod.
He's still stuck in. And everybody keeps moving away from him and around him. But there's never a scene where they actually physically undo his chains and get him out. Like we see Rhodey get out and they carry him out as they tell him, Mr. Rhodes, you've been in here for a long time.
And that still bothers me because I still want to know how long was he a Skrull?
Yes.
Damn
So it seems because he can't walk. I'm assuming this was during Civil War.
I agree. It's after Civil War because he's not able to walk on his own.
Okay, so it's but even post Endgame, like it shows him in Infinity War and Endgame wearing the braces.
I think it's between those times. I think it's after he gets shot down before we see him in the finale with Tony and Stan Lee. I think it's in between those two where Rhodey goes missing.
So you don't think so Rhodey doesn't know Tony Stark is dead then?
Yes, I was thinking that too. My sister and I were waiting for a line for him to be like, oh, so where's Tony? And then we'll be like, he doesn't know. I was waiting for that kind of line to like connect me back to the timeline. It made me realize he doesn't know anything about what happened to Tony afterwards. And I was waiting for my heart to be broken.
Before we move on, our favorite friend Mel, all of us have done something at one point or another with Mel, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So hello, Mel, for all four of your friends here. No, I agree. I wholeheartedly think that they've chosen a very interesting, and they have loopholes galore here. By saying a long time, they've learned from Spider-Man. Remember Homecoming with the original Spider-Man, where they go X amount of years later, where the timelines don't add up between him being the little boy at the Stark Expo and then being a high school student when he was. They've realized that they have to say vague time periods so they can change it if necessary.
And this so much means so much more if he died, if he got scrawled out before Tony died, it puts so much more weight on Armor Wars, in my opinion, because you're going to find this guy trying to now navigate a world where his best friend was taken from him, but he didn't get that ability to have that last moment with his best friend that we saw in Endgame. That might be Scrody, and if it's been a long time, a year or two doesn't seem like a long time. And Gaia would know if anybody, but like, yeah, dude, it's interesting.
And remember, it's not been just a year or two, because if he is pre-Endgame, if he's pre-Endgame,
no, but I'm saying a year or two since Endgame has been.
Yes, but remember, so he also got blipped.
Did he get blipped?
Sorry, he didn't get blipped.
No, he didn't get blipped.
So there's 5 years on top of that.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's either because if he had been taken post Endgame, 2 years doesn't seem. It's a long time. Don't get me wrong, but that line makes me feel that it's pre Infinity War, and that just it stabs you in the heart a little bit that he like the emotional resonance could be taken away in Armor Wars.
I don't think you take away the emotional resonance because
I think you create a new one.
Yes, I agree. You create a new one because remember, the only people to speak during Tony Stark's funeral, and it's not an audio line. And again, thank you to New Rockstars for being so hell bent on this. Eric Voss mentioned it a couple times. if you watch the Endgame things, the only people to speak during the funeral of Tony Stark is Happy Hogan and Rhodey as they hug each other and Rhodey's crying. Rhodey could have been part of Tony's life from the middle of Captain America Civil War all the way through Endgame and had enough time, because we've seen that Skrulls can develop an emotional connection to the people in their lives. Look at the Skrull who got killed with the Navy thing, the British naval officer in the sun. Mm-hmm. There's a potential that they can form emotional bonds. He could have cried for the loss of his best friend, even if he were the Skrull.
Or he just that Skrull is a very good actor.
She,
because the Skrull looked very female in that episode. Yeah,
there was definitely that thirst trap
There's
scene.
Yeah.
We then get the president going on the offensive, and for this, we're going to go ahead and go back to the audio line. So if you just give us about 30 seconds, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to leave this visual up, and we're going to play what Ritson's saying in this scene.
We all witnessed the terror attack that was carried out on my motorcade earlier this week in England. The terrorists responsible were a shape-shifting, alien-born species known as Skrulls. That is why tonight I'm presenting to Congress for immediate emergency authorization a bill that designates all off-world-born species enemy combatants. We know who you are. We know how to find you. And we will kill every last one of you.
So this pulls up a whole bunch of new questions. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm going to go ahead and go around the table with the group and see how we feel about them. 1, this means that all of the people of New Asgard are in very grave danger because they are all off-world alien species who are on this planet. Thor is no more welcome on this planet. Most of the Avengers aren't welcome on this planet, as a bunch of them who are... Now, granted, most of the ones who remain are human, but there's a few that aren't. There's a few we're going to see that's not. Also, Earth is always home to a whole bunch of aliens, considering now the U.S. government has told us that in real life, there are aliens in the world. And we'll talk about that another time on a different show. But what do we think about this and going forward with into the next couple movies and shows? A world where the president has gone ahead and said that aliens are now targets for death.
Boris, you want to go first?
Yeah. So this just sounded like one of those classic X-Men speeches. And I kind of feel like this is going into that anti-powers, anti-mutants, anti-alien, if you're not one of us, you're against us, and F you type thing, type of mentality that the world is going to have leading into the next few phases of the MCU, be 100% leading into X-Men. And I think, like everything that you said, anyone who is not human right now is in danger. And as we saw literally right after, we had not only military, not only random people, but vigilantes literally killing Skrulls and anyone who they think is a Skrull, because they even had that throw in line where people are just killing people thinking that they're Skrulls at this point or aliens at this point, right? So they're creating a very dangerous atmosphere in the world in the MCU right now, and I'm kind of for it in that sense, because it can lead to a lot of very, very cool character introductions.
Astrid?
I think the part that really jumped at me is when he says, like, we know who you are, like we know we have a way to know who you are. So just it's interesting because we obviously know from like the outside how some of them look like, but what about the ones that don't look like any aliens? So I think that would be interesting of like the way of them showing us of how they found out who they are. And I wonder if moving forward we're gonna see little hints here and there of them kind of taking those people now that they know who they are. It's like, we know who you are, it's your time to go kind of thing. So yeah, just a part of like the speech in itself and the way he just says, basically we know how we know the reveals, and then go into like this particular scene and like the way they show it as after the speech is like, yeah, basically seeing it happen here, whether it's Skrull or humans. So I think that was super interesting, just seeing this. But I imagine something like that moving forward with the other projects too, because I think that would be interesting to see them kind of finding those people and taking them away, or even shooting them as it showed us in here.
Yeah, like it's an interesting point because again, like you have all the people in New Asgard, including Korg, who's like awesome as shit. You do they get into a point? Do they say eventually? Is it if you look human, like in an Asgardian way, do they get to stay, or is it just all aliens? And that's where it's just scary. And does it apply to the whole world, or does it apply just to America? That because he's the president of the United States, not of the world. So again, is it world implications on this, or is it just the United States? Do we get some kind of country? Do we get the non X-Men version of Krakoa, or an island like that? Do they find not powered beings be able to find a home in this world that's not within because America shuns them? Like there's so many things, and like maybe X-Men introduce it's a way to help introduce Krakoa, and this is they start bringing, and it's the X-Men bringing aliens in to be part of their culture when they introduce X-Men into this universe. There's so many weird questions that I'm very much looking forward to, and then again, it's the Thunderbolt Ross of it all. Again, they're referencing him for Thunderbolts as President Thunderbolt Ross. Does he use this as a stepping stone to take down the current president? And that and because of all the crazy stuff that happens because of this. So there's so many things that open up here for what could come next.
Something that you mentioned you mentioned Krakoa a bunch of times, a place where we can go ahead and get aliens to go ahead and congregate. There's one loophole and missing storyline piece that hasn't been addressed since the movie happened, except for a passing line on a website in She-Hulk. There's an Eternal half born in the ocean.
Yep.
And that's supposed to be a large part of Thunderbolts. It's supposed to be the mining of the Eternal in the ocean. I think that might be where we start getting some settlements and we start getting some X-Men references here. I think they're going to use that and build outward.
Oh, I didn't even think of the Dead Eternal. Oh, because again, you could create what's above. Imagine what's below the water too. If you mine it out right, you could create it in pretty much an underground society using that Eternal. Jesus, I didn't even think of that.
After this, we have Nick Fury going back home and talking to his wife / ex-wife / spy friend. I don't know what you want to call her at this point. And they have a quick back and forth where he basically says, look, I'm sick of this shit. I'm old. I almost thought they were gonna have Roger Murtaugh come out here and go, I'm too old for this shit, Riggs. And go ahead and go back up to the spaceship. And he says, you know where to find me. And the storyline drops. And we get the Super Skrull getting an offer. And again, I have an audio clip, and I want to go ahead and play this. It'll be about a minute of your time. So just go ahead and give me one moment to play this.
We meet at last. Unless you have an army crammed in the back of that car, I advise you to go back the way you came.
Oh, I haven't come for a fight, Gaia. With your special abilities, it would be a lopsided affair.
Who are you?
A friend of a friend. Your people need a leader. You all need resources to fight this war that Ritson has launched on your people, and I can give them to you.
And let me guess, you're doing this out of the kindness of your heart?
God, no, don't be silly.
My father entered into a deal like that. Didn't end so well.
Yes, well, let's be sure not to repeat the mistakes of Talos and Fury and leave love and friendship out of this. I will use you, and you will use me, and together we'll make this planet safe for both our people.
I think this was an incredible scene to introduce because it ties up what we're doing with the Super Skrull for just a few moments. And we get the agreement here. This is another scene from here. And Andre tagged it as the start of MI-13.
Yes! That's what I want so badly. Because again, like I said earlier, I want Olivia Colman-led MI-13 in some form. A show would be awesome, but if you create something with Amelia Clark and Olivia Colman, where they're creating this unit, maybe it's not MI13 as it was in the comics, but they create something out of this. I am all in for that. Especially with those two leading it, damn, that would be some great acting, and that'd just be a great series. Like again, I'll admit, I was never an Amelia Clark fan before this show because I'm not a Game of Thrones guy. But damn, these two would kill it in a TV show together. Just those two leading it.
You want to know something interesting talking about the idea of an MI13 or a British-led group of forces? There are some other key pieces of Easter eggs that have been dropped before. In Endgame, when they go back to get the Tesseract the second time, after they botched the first one, and they go back to the 70s and they go back to Camp Lehigh, when Peggy Carter is in there, she's looking at a file for Brian Braddock, Captain Britain. You could bring that, keep going with that, and we could have a new Captain Britain. And if you want to just go ahead and keep it Game of Thrones related, Kit Harington is in the MCU and playing the Black Knight, who may or may not be involved with MI13, depending on which storyline they want to go there with him and Blade.
If we even get that movie, god damn.
I mean, poor Mahershala Ali. That man has been out there for a long time. Who had worse luck? The Ant-Man storyline, considering it was supposed to come out at the same time as Iron Man, the original, and we didn't get it till so many years later. Or poor Mahershala Ali, who can't even film his movie because everything starts going to shit every time they get close.
We then, yeah. Oh, just say Boris or Ashley, you got anything on this? At least that scene there.
No, I'm gonna wait because I want to. Yeah, the next little bit.
Right.
Okay, let's.
Yeah.
So we find millions of Skrulls going ahead and left sleep in the facility, and they go ahead and get let out. And then we start seeing, as we talked about earlier, with the different Skrulls being killed. Oh no, they killed Shooter McGavin. You bastards! And the Prime Minister dies. And then that one throwaway lady, by the way, goes ahead and starts killing people left, right, and center as she gets attacked. And she's like, nope, I'm not taking this shit. I'm going to go ahead and kill all of you.
Oh, and didn't they show the human version of her getting out? In that they showed the human version of her getting out of the pod. So again, where is she? Is she still in wherever she's from? That's the question. Is she in hiding and they're trying to kill her? Like there's so many open ends to this. It's awesome.
I like how they didn't tie off all the loose ends, but they tied off a bunch of them. Like the questions that are coming out of this aren't necessarily like questions we need to have answered. They're loophole questions that can potentially make content down the line. And by the way, once this strike is over, content creators are going to have a field day with everything that's come out of this, by the way. From here until Loki premieres in October, there's a lot of content to be made once this strike gets finished.
Yep.
We get a phone call between President Ritson and Nick Fury, where Fury goes ahead and tells him he's going to be a one-term president because this act is stupid and unsupported, and he just went up him one side and down the other, talking about how this was a bad decision, and I loved it. I loved seeing Fury defending the Skrulls.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any thoughts on the phone call with Fury?
No, I wanted to go back to the part of like Sonia and Gaia though, because one of my favorite parts of like that scene there is when she's like, "Oh, you're doing this out of the kindness of your heart." She goes, "No, silly." I love it like that, that reaction from her because it just goes back to how Sonia has been since she was introduced, and I believe she said something about like, "Oh, like our people," but she kind of said it in a way as if she's not a Skrull, but she's definitely not human either, and we still don't have an answer towards that. So I thought that was interesting the way she answered back to her, and even just like how even after she said that, she was, trusted her and went along with it. Then when she left with her.
I think part of the reason why Sonya Fallsworth gets trusted in that moment is because she lays it all out there. She's like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like your dad and Fury did. Like, I'm going to use you and you're going to use me.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to go ahead with this relationship, both knowing that neither one of us want to be in it, but we both need to be in it.
Yeah, and she said it, yes, leave the love and the friendship out of it, as she said before. And I love how she, remarked back to what happened in everything, this whole series with these two. So I thought that was super interesting going back to basically the beginning of this.
We get Fury going ahead to his spaceship to go ahead and end the episode. But before he does, Vara comes out and she says that she's coming with him. But if he wants to be with her from here on out, she wants to be Vara, and she's going to have to love him in her own skin. And Fury says, deal.
Mm-hmm. Again, it was a beautiful ending for the two characters in wherever they go, because we know we're getting Nick in the Marvels. He's been in the new trailer that just dropped from San Diego Comic-Con. So again, like I'm happy for the two characters again, because remember, we were left with the question in the last episode: would you have loved me in my own skin? And the answer is yes, and I love that the answer is yes.
Astrid, Boris, any thoughts on the ending?
No, just the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. There's so many open-ended things and so many discussions that can be had. And there's something I do want to bring up, and I think it is the time to bring this up. And that's, if we remember, at one point, Sonya Fallsworth ends up with the blueprints of that scroll machine. Does that play into the creation of the Fantastic Four? Does that play into the creation of X-Men? Does that play into the creation of something within the MCU that we are expecting to see soon?
I'll throw it out there. She needs a scientist to be able to build this. What about Victor Von Doom?
Oh God, to bring him in,
he's been apparently in 2 different Marvel movies and pulled at the last minute. According to multiple sources, there are end credit scenes in both Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and Ant-Man: Quantumania that would have debuted to us a brand new Victor Von Doom. And in both times, they've decided that it wasn't the right opportunity and it wasn't the right time and they were going to wait. Because apparently he's not the villain, supposedly, for the Fantastic Four solo movie. He may be in it, but he is not going to be the villain of the first movie, which I'm fine with. Because if we have to deal with them trying to kill Victor Von Doom in the first movie, we're going to get the first Fantastic Four all over again. And I don't want that.
Or the travesty of 2015.
I think there was a lot of merits for 2015 being okay. There's a lot of good things in that 2015 movie that people rag on it a bit too much.
But there's a lot of bad too, though.
So, let's be honest. There's a lot of bad and a lot of Marvel movies lately too. Like, let's not just sit here and say that 2015 Fantastic Four is the worst of them all. I mean, we had Thor: Love and Thunder a year or so ago.
I thought that was way better.
Oh my God,
it was bad.
That is my least favorite Marvel movie of all time. But again, that's another topic for another day. Questions.
Talk about that.
What is your number one question going forward in the MCU as we head to Loki season 2 and beyond? And remember, Secret Wars is coming up. Armor Wars, the movie, is supposedly coming up. What is your number one burning question to get the answer to right now?
Jeez.
I'll go ahead and start. My number one question is, where are the Skrulls going to go? And going forward, Nick Fury talks about how they are going to go to a peace summit with the Kree. We know in the next Marvel movie that we're going to get on the big screen that we have a Kree revolutionary as the main antagonistic villain. of this movie who's trying to rebirth her people and bring back what was the wording I used? Hold on, I have to go back to a message I sent to Astrid a little while ago. I was talking to her about this earlier. She's a revolutionary Kree warrior trying to restore her homeland. So my question is, how does these peace talks either go really good or really bad as we set up the Marvels 2, the Marvels, Captain Marvel's second movie?
Yeah, that'd be my thought is, because he's heading back up to Sword, right? Or Sword or Saber,
yeah.
Base. And from all counts, this is U.S. run, or at least U.S. involved, because the way they were going to fire him and everything. So does he take Saber as does Fury have the ability to take Saber as his own thing, or did it? Because that's the real question. That's the question I wonder: is how is Saber going to run with Fury in charge while still being associated with the American government?
Astrid or Boris?
I definitely kept thinking back of once he said he was leaving with her. I kept thinking back of like Saber in the trailer for the Marvels of like first he's with Monica and then Kamala shows up in the scene there. So I was like, I wonder if that's connected to this particular ending scene here as well, and how are the Marvels involved with all of this? Because I suppose something must be happening there since he's in Saber while this is going on. I wonder what the connection would be in the next movie between those two kind of stories.
I'm interested to kind of see how they pave the way to Thunderbolts right now. That's really like the big one, just because especially when you see the state of the U.S. possibly world with their kind of anti-alien propaganda going, is how we're going to get, from this anarchy to the Thunderbolts being required.
Yeah, that's a great one, man.
The thing I find interesting about the Thunderbolts is the lineup we have right now isn't super villain heavy.
Yeah.
And the Thunderbolts have always been a villain story of villains being like Avengers, so to speak. I'm wondering how that's going to play out. That's an interesting angle that Boris brings up, because I'm so iffy about that movie because of the fact that we're seeing so many back and forths with how they're going to play this movie and the characters they've chosen to be the Thunderbolts. They're not villain enough for me, and that makes me wonder how that's going to play out. Or do we have an entire cast of Thunderbolts that we haven't brought up because Kevin Feige's playing the hiding game? Because Kevin Feige loves to play the hidden egg underneath the gold.
Yeah.
Boris, your overall thoughts on Secret Invasion, and give it a score for what you thought of this series as a whole.
Man, I overall enjoyed it. I thought this was good. I thought this was well done. I'm a fan of the more grounded series, and I'm a fan of kind of like the spy thrillers and things like that. So I really did enjoy this. If I was going to have to rate this out of 5, I would give this a 4. I really did enjoy this a lot. I thought that it put us in an interesting position in the MCU outside of the whole multiverse stuff, right? Like that's been such a important key element in the MCU for so long that it was kind of cool seeing what other people are up to.
Yeah. Astrid.
I'll say probably like a 4.5 out of 5, because I feel like at least last episode there was some parts that were kind of a little bit slow, and even this one I thought I would have preferred a little bit more time for them to wrap up the stories as well. So that's the only thing. But I like from the beginning how they caught my attention. They kept my attention, from beginning to end of the show, and how it connected so many things. But it, like we mentioned throughout this episode tonight, is like it brought up so many other questions moving forward of how this fits into the timeline and who's involved with what and what's coming next. And it feels like there's so many things that could be happening and that we don't know until the movies come out. Now with the strike, I think it'll be an interesting time of a lot of, kind of predicting and kind of thinking, what route they're going to choose, because there's so many choices. I think it'll be interesting which one they pick moving forward. And that's the part that I'm the most interested in.
Andre.
I'm with Ashley. 4.5. Again, episode 5 was a little lackluster to me. Episode 1, I will say I enjoyed it, but everything just ramped up from there. Episode 5 came back down, and then this ramped back up again. It's been a really strong series. The acting has been absolutely incredible. Like everybody just stepped up their game. I just the little things, the little parts, the Shooter McGavin, his little part, like everybody's little parts, and then all the big parts of the acting was just so phenomenal. And it still gave us a big comic book fight at the end with in episode 6 here with the Super Skrulls facing off. So again, it gave you pretty much everything you need.
I'm going to go with the 4.25. I'm going to go right in the middle of all the scores. 4.25. I enjoyed this series to no end, but like I said last week, I'm still a little disappointed that we were promised a spy thriller, and I feel like at points we didn't get a spy thriller. I was expecting something more like Captain America Winter Soldier with the whole spy versus spy thing, and I think for certain periods of this show we were kind of missing that. That being said, you can't take anything away from what they did. They did such a fantastic job taking the Secret Invasion storyline and making it something brand new. Because this isn't the comic book storyline. It's based off of it. It kind of has a lot of similarities, but it's something brand new for the MCU, which I thought was great. The actors did a fantastic job. The makeup team, the CGI, the writing team absolutely killed it. Just so many good people. And of course, the director, Ali Salam, just absolutely knocked it out of the park. I will also say, since I seen this on the internet the other day, because of the fact that animators have a different writing team than the Actors Studios and the Writers Guild of America, should it release anytime soon, we, Andre and I, will be able to do episodes about X-Men 97, because that is close to being complete for both the first and second season of those shows, because the animators have different writers and they don't have actual actors, so they're under different contracts. So we should be getting those episodes sometime in the near future.
The thing, X-Men 97 was supposed to release fall or early winter this year, so we don't know. We might get it.
But before we go ahead and get out of here, we want to go ahead and give our friends here a chance to go ahead and plug the things that they are doing. So, Mr. Boris, I'm going to give you the big screen. You're going to go ahead and tell people where we can find you.
Well, you can find me in a ton of places. I am the host of Sunday Night's Main Event on TSN Radio and the iHeartRadio apps. So you can go to snmeradio.com if you're a fan of wrestling shows, wrestling thoughts and opinions. Go ahead and go to snmeradio.com, or you can join our Facebook group, facebook.com/snmeradio. And honestly, all we do is talk wrestling. It's actually a very positive place, which is very rare to find in that fandom. You can also find my other work at bamsportsent.com. And that's for my BAM Weekly, where we talk about sports, entertainment, wrestling, and everything in between. And then there's itscanonpodcast.com, where that's where I geek out and talk about tech, toys, games, everything.
And of course, for those that don't see it scrolling on the bottom, you can find him on most social media platforms at BR_Aguilar. So go ahead and definitely check that out. Thank you for joining us. It was great. Miss Astra, I know you don't like the big screen, so we're going to go ahead back to the forest. So you can go ahead and plug where we can find you.
You can find me mostly on my Twitter, Astro Pizarro, and then my threads on my Instagram, Astro Pizarro20. You can find me again on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. as Ed and I do the predictions of the Great American Bash with our good friend Steve of the SCW channel. And then after that, we have Sunday at the Great American Bash show that we're doing as well. And then back again doing Taking Over on Tuesday.
Whole bunch of NXT this weekend. Andre, where can we find you, good sir?
You can find me in multiple places. I find me on YouTube at Andre Melball Wrestling Talk on YouTube. You can find me all over OLE, because we're finishing this, and I'll be back next Friday with Ed doing the preview for SummerSlam. I'll be there with that, and you can find me on Twitter, Hive, Mastodon. There's another one now. I can't remember what it is.
Blue Sky?
Oh, no, TikTok. At that Canada guy. Instagram and Threads at that Canada dude. I haven't gotten a Blue Sky invite. Hint, hint. Astrid.
I'll send you one.
I don't have one.
And you can find me on all those at that Canada game and at that Canada dude. If you want to see a really good thing going on with the G1, me and Boris did a video there with SNME or my channel SNME to get a little predictions and a draft picking our people. So if you want to check that out and see how we're doing in our standings, we're posting it daily on the BAM Facebook page. So
there you go. You can find me on Twitter at EdFries12584. I don't need no Blue Sky. I like my black skies. I have my threads right here. You don't need to find me on Threads. You can also find me with my gaming stuff on Twitch at EdFries2002. I stream Marvel Snap. I stream Marvel Midnight Suns. I stream WWE 2K23. Streamed a little bit of DC Dual Force, but it doesn't seem to be doing very well. It's not really a streamable game, so I'm not sure how I'm going to keep doing that. You can also, as people said, me and Astrid this Saturday for the NXT preview show, this Sunday for the NXT post show, this Tuesday for the NXT weekly show post show. You can find me and Andre actually next Saturday morning for anybody willing to watch. Me and Andre will be recording on Friday night as our local establishment has other programming going on in that time slot. For our local establishment, you can find us on Twitter at Ol'Ed Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Ol'Ed Podcast. You can find us on Twitch at Our Local Establishment, on TikTok at Our Local Establishment, and on YouTube at youtube.com/@OurLocalEstablishment. Thank you for joining us. We are going to go ahead and do a raid on the Twitch side, and I think we are going to try to go raid our friend Mike the Ref. He's been a good friend to all of us here, so if he is still on for his AEW Raw Watch Along, He is off.
He is jumped off.
Unfortunate. We will go ahead and go to Get the Tables, who's another great friend of the channel, as they have just done an AEW watch along. We're not sure what they're doing now, but they're one of the people who talk about great wrestling things. So in just a few moments, we will go ahead and raid them. Thank you all for joining us. We greatly appreciate it, and we will see you next time on Marvel Talk. Goodbye.